An audio listener is typically added to the scene by default. It is also added to the main camera. So if we were to go to the main camera object in our hierarchy panel, you would see the audio listener component. This is basically just allowing the audio clips that are in the scene to be played through your headphones or speakers. Now, audio clips have to be held under the components of audio sources. So, to add an audio source to your scene, you'll need to add it as a component to a game object. In this case, we would want to perhaps create a brand new game object, and we would create an empty. Let's reset the position, and let's add component audio source. Here you'll see that we can add an audio clip. Go ahead and click on the selection toggle and choose Mysteries of the Deep. Double click on that, and that will assign it to the audio clip parameter. Now at this point, the audio clip will play on awake, meaning that whenever we hit the play button, it will automatically play. Now, because this is a looping audio source, we would want it to restart whenever it gets to the end. And so in this case, we need to tell it that it is a looping audio source. Now, there are several other parameters, and we could go through all of them. However, I think that it would be most beneficial to just talk about a couple. The main one would be volume. Volume is pretty self-explanatory, and you can raise or lower the volume of the audio source from the game object itself. You also have things like pitch, where you can change the frequency of the sound and make it slow down or speed up. And then you also have stereo pan, and stereo pan is going to adjust the overall balance of that sound, whether it's coming from the left ear or the right ear. And then you have spatial blend. Typically with main cameras like this third-person camera, where it's pulled out from the top like a dungeon-style game, you would typically want to use a 2D spatial blend. So that way you don't have any odd angles in which the sound comes in. Once you start to add in the 3D blend, you need to be aware of where your audio listener is located. Now let's go ahead and move on into the actual playing of this and start talking about how we can begin to blend this with perhaps with other sound effects and things like that. So if we were to come in and hit play, we would notice that our audio source is playing. Now with this, we could come in and we could hit play, and we could create another object with an audio source. And actually, let's rename this. Let's call this game music. And let's create another game object. And we're going to call this ambience. And we'll reset its position as well. And then we'll add an audio source component. And we'll go to clip, and we're going to use this Forest Night ambient. We'll also loop this one, so that way it's continuing to play over and over again. And then if we now press play, we're going to notice that this particular audio clip is going to play right along with it. Now once we start adding even more audio clips, let's say for our particle effects, if I were to come in and select this particle effect, I could add an audio source. And on this one, I would also loop it, and we'll call this torch, and we'll use the torch audio clip here. And then we could even copy this component, perhaps place it on our other objects. So I'll paste component as new. Okay. So now we have all of these different audio objects in the scene. Let's go ahead and hit play and listen to what we have. So you can hear the music, you can hear the ambience, and then you could also hear those torches going on. Now at this point, we could begin to select the different audio source objects and we can begin to adjust their volume and begin to mix the sound to get the overall soundscape that we want to create. However, this can be very difficult as we might have several objects that would cause lots of audio to happen. So like torches, and whenever we start hitting objects and we start moving around with footsteps and the ambience and the music, and perhaps we even have different types of music going on at the same time, we want to be able to manage these audio sources and mix them to create the final soundscape. So let's talk about how to use audio mixers next.